Hi and welcome to the channel. My name is Nuno and this channel is all about running stuff in the cloud. In this video I will show you the first thing that you have to do to securely run workloads on AWS, leveraging the VPC service with a couple of public and private subnets. Let's take a look at this diagram to visualize what we are going to build. First we're going to create a VPC and an internet gateway which will attach it to the VPC. After that, we have to create a public and a private subnet on two availability zones. So on the public subnet, that's where you run your services that require direct access from the internet, like an OpenVPN server, load balancer. We are also going to create a Jumpbox, but we have to be very careful with this server here. And in a future video, I'll show you how you can secure this. On the private subnets, where you run your API, your web servers, your private databases. And those servers should never run on a public subnet because you're exposing yourself to being hacked. After creating the public and private subnet, we will create a NAT gateway and a routing table. So the routing table on the public subnet will route all the traffic out through the internet gateway, and the routing table on the private subnet, since it has no direct access to the internet, will have to route all the traffic from the private subnet out to the NAT gateway, which itself will then route all the traffic through the internet gateway. Now that we are on the AWS management console, we are ready to start building what we saw on the diagram. So make sure you're in a region that makes sense to your use case for this demo. I'm in the Northern California region. So let's go ahead and go to the VPC service. Go to your VPCs. Every region will have a default VPC that comes standard by Amazon. The problem with this VPC is that it doesn't have a NAT gateway and it's all public subnets. So let's create one. Let's call this Prod VPC. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to need this name a lot. The IP range, you can choose whatever you want. Typically I'll go with this. So basically, the first and the second part of the IP is logged to the VPC, and then I'm going to use the third for the subnets and the fourth for the hosts on each subnet. Okay, let's go ahead and create. Close, the VPC is created. Let's create the internet gateway. Okay, let's create a new one. Let's call this Prod VPC internet gateway. We have to attach it to the VPC. Okay, so now we're ready to create the public and private subnets. Let's create the public first. Public 1, Prod VPC. Let's create the first on the 1A. It's going to be 10.0.0.0/24. Now by default, all subnets will be private unless you change an option. So let's go ahead and change that. Modify auto assign IP settings. Let's enable this one. So every server or service that runs on this subnet will have a public IP. Now let's create the public number 2. Public 2. Prod VPC. Now we have to choose a different availability zone and a different IP range. 1.0.24. Okay. Let's make it public. Okay. Now we're going to create a private subnet. Private 1. And the 1A and the 10.0.100.0/24. The reason why I don't choose the number 2 or 3 or 4 is because typically this is a personal preference. So the 0 to 99 will be the public subnets in case I'll need more than 2, and 100 and above is going to be private subnets, and that's much easier to look at an IP and see if it's from a public or a private subnet. Okay, Now let's create the private number 2. 1b 10.0.101.0/24. Okay. Let's close this. Sorry. Okay, so we have all the subnets, and we have the private 1 and the private 2 in different availability zones, and the public 1 and 2 in different availability zones. So if you go back to the diagram, we have created a VPC, the internet gateway, and both private and public subnets. Now let's take care of the NAT gateways. So if you go here to the NAT gateways, these ones are here from a previous test that I did. They will eventually go away. Let's create a new one on the public one, and we have to create a new elastic IP. Create NAT gateway. Okay. Now while this is creating, let's change the name. It's going to be ProVPC public 1 NAT. Okay, let's create the other one. Subnet public 2. Okay, as for the other one, let's get a new elastic IP, new NAT gateway. Edit the name. VPC public 2 NAT. Okay. Okay, so we have the 2 NAT gateways pending. Each is on a different subnet, so everything is properly created. Now let's create the route tables. So if you go to this menu, let's create first the public route. So public route VPC. So by default it will have the local route. So we just need to add the outbound to the internet route. Add a new route 10.0.0.0/0, and we're going to specify the internet gateway. This one. Save route. So this public route will be the same for all the public subnets, and then every private subnet will have a different route because it will route to a specific NAT gateway. So let's create the private routes then. Private 1 route on the ProVPC. Create. Let's do the same thing for the outbound. Edit 10.0.0. But this time it's not going to the internet gateway, it's going to a NAT gateway. And since this is for the private one, let's choose the public one NAT. Save routes. Let's create the private 2. Private 2. ProVPC. Let's add the internet route. NAT gateway. Choose the public 2 NAT. Close. Okay, so let me change this, sorry. So we have the private 1, the private 2, and the public routes. Now we have to assign them to each subnet. So let's go to subnets. Let's choose first the public one, routing table, add association, and let's choose the public route. Okay. Hit save. Now we're going to do the same thing for the public, for the public 2. Okay. Public route, save. And now we have to do for the private one. Choose private one route, save. And now for the private 2. Private 2. Save. Close. Okay, so basically we have the VPC, Internet Gateway, NAT Gateway, and both routing tables for the availability zone. So now the foundation is pretty much complete. Let's just create a Jumpbox and see how we can access other stuff from the private subnet. So in order to create a Jumpbox, let's go to the EC2 menu, or you can go, if you don't have these shortcuts, you can go to the AWS main console screen and just type EC2. So one thing, I already created a key pair. You can go ahead and create one for you and download it. I just chose the name Northern California just to make sure that I know which key pair to use when logging into machines on this region. So let's go to instances. Let's create a new one. I recommend you choose this one because it will interact better with all the AWS monitoring systems. So let's create this one. Small instance, doesn't really matter for a Jumpbox. Next, make sure you choose the Pro VPC, and now we're going to choose a public subnet, which chooses one. The rest doesn't really matter. Next, the storage, it's up to you. Typically make sure it's encrypted. Tags, I'm just going to name this Pro VPC Jumpbox. Okay. So we're going to create a new security group for this machine. Let's call it Jumpbox as well, so it's easier to look at the security group and know what it's for. So this firewall rule is basically allowing SSH traffic from anywhere in the world. I don't recommend using this, but just for the demo, let's use this. And in the next video, I'll show you how you can make sure that your Jumpbox is more secure by limiting the IP that can connect to it, as well as having multi-factor authentication to log on to the machine. Okay, let's launch this. Let's choose this key pair, acknowledge. Let's launch the instance. So while this is loading, so the machine is creating now, where you can see it has already assigned a public IP because we've created this one in a public subnet. So let's copy this and SSH to the machine. So we have terminal. So let's add. So basically, I'm adding the PEM file that you created and downloaded. I'm adding to my SSH agent, so I don't really need to specify it whenever I'm logging in to the machine. So let's copy this. Okay, so SSH EC2 user. So every machine that you create from that AWS AMI is going to have this user as default. Okay. Yes. So we have now logged into machine. Just to make sure, I want to show you something. So if you do a curl to if config.me, this will tell you the IP address. So as you can see, it's the same as the public IP from the Jumpbox. Now let's just create a private server so I can show you something. New instance. Let's choose this one. That's fine. Pro VPC. Pro. Let's create this on the private subnet number 1. It doesn't really matter. That's alright. Make sure it's encrypted. add tags, name, prod VPC private server. That's it. Let's copy this. Next. So let's create a new security group, but this time we're going to say that you can only SSH from the Jumpbox. So instead of allowing from anywhere, even though the server is not going to be public to the internet, this basically allows SSH from any machine within the VPC, and you don't really want that. So let's filter this just by the Jumpbox. So if I type Jumpbox, okay. So right now it will only allow SSH from the Jumpbox. Let's launch the machine. Acknowledge. Okay. One thing that I want to show you is the public IP on this private server. With instances. So the server is creating. Let's copy this IP. We got the terminal. So let's exit. So basically this option is passing on my agent keys to the Jumpbox, so I can use them jumping to the private server. So let's do an SSH EC2 user at, hopefully the machine is already created. Still creating. Okay. So we are now on the private server. Let's do the same curl. So this time this is the IP that is returning. So if we go to the VPC menu, so it does not have a public IP. So if we go to the VPC menu again, and we go to the NAT Gateways on the public one, so this IP is basically the IP of the NAT gateway. So that means that the route is working and all the traffic from that private subnet is going through the appropriate NAT gateway. So that's basically it for this video. In the next one, I will show you how you can secure that Jumpbox with multi-factor authentication. And that's it. So leave a like, subscribe, and any comment is helpful. Let me know what you think of the video, any ideas that you want me to cover in the future video, and see you next week.